thank you, Dr. Jayakumar, for the invitation and allowing me to present my views on the topic at such a prime platform. So my topic is tapping diaspora resource, a new development strategy. So in recent times, the policy debate on diaspora development nexus has made diaspora an important feature of development studies, and a lot of research has been conducted on the topic of migration over last several years that points towards a shift in discussion from seeing the immigration of skilled people as a loss to seeing a skilled migration as an opportunity to get remittances, trade, investment projects, and new knowledge. China, India, Israel, Japan, Republic of Korea, Taiwan are examples of economies that have tapped into their diaspora as a source of knowledge. In addition, there has been a new emphasis on including both skilled and unskilled migrants as contributors to home and host countries. Development. Now, this relationship between diaspora and development in a positive sense has come to the forefront as a major development policy issue recently. Although the debate has swung between optimism and pessimism since the 1950s, the optimistic view began to dominate in the 1990s and 2000, especially with the publication of World Bank's Global Financial Report, which stated that remittances far outweigh official development assistance. Now, it is now widely acknowledged that migrants make significant contributions to the development of, especially their countries of origin. Thus, policymakers, civil society, international agencies are now paying attention to the ways diasporas contribute to the development. Earlier, diaspora's role in development was limited to senders of remittances, but now they are seen in the roles of investors, philanthropists, innovators, important movers in the growth of important sectors such as tourism and in the development of human capital. So many governments perceive that they could achieve much more by establishing close and productive partnership with diaspora communities. And with this perception comes an important concept, and that is diaspora engagement. And this applies to both governments of countries of origin and governments of countries of settlement. Now, diaspora engagement with their countries of origin is not new. Long before we researchers and the international community and policymakers took notice, immigrants and their descendants have taken part in development efforts at home, working with both public and private sectors. Now, more than ever before, governments at both ends of the migration cycle recognize the value of these engagements and are seeking ways to cooperate with them. Countries of origin wish to attract diaspora talents and resources, while countries of destination hope to increase effectiveness of their development assistance and immigration and integration policy. So the ideal situation is when policymakers and practitioners in both origin and destination countries share a common goal, that is to strengthen diaspora's role in development. And this in turn creates a perfect window of opportunity for development. Now, the pivotal question facing many policymakers is not so much if diasporas can benefit their countries of origin, but how do they do so and what kinds of government policies and programs can foster these relationships. But first, I will take up another question. Why is it necessary to study this area? Now, what has happened is that this widespread recognition of diaspora's role in the development has led to an increase in policies and programs attempting to leverage the goodwill and resource of diaspora. But it has been difficult to track the challenges and successes that emerged from these experiences. So, there is a need for an evaluation how far policies and programs have achieved their purpose, and based on the lessons, provide policymakers and practitioners a guide for new initiatives. So we first need a viable policy programs options based on actual experiences from around the world that can be adapted to suit local context. And second, strategic plan of action to engage diasporas more fully. Now, diaspora engagement is best approached as a process rather than as one or even a series of one-time actions. So there is a need for a roadmap to help policymakers and practitioners fit many elements of diaspora policy into a coherent strategy. Thus, a diaspora engagement is a process that requires sustained attention, and second, it also requires a strategy. So we will first talk about what are some of the building blocks of diaspora engagement strategies. Now, it is important to understand that every diaspora relationship with countries of origin or ancestry and countries of destination or settlement is unique. But there are certain elements that are necessary components of almost all successful strategies of engagements. So, the first step for any government in devising a strategy to facilitate stronger diaspora involvement in development is to identify its own goals in undertaking this pursuit and to define internal tools and mechanisms such as administrative and financial, etc., required for the task. And for the destination country, the strategy may differ according to the characteristics and origin of the diaspora engaged. Now, governments can then ascertain how far their own capacities will go towards reaching their goals, which capacity reside within the targeted diaspora, and which must be created or sought from other actors. Now, what do I mean by that? If, for example, a country of origin's goal is to reduce poverty or support national balance of payments, then what will be the focus of its diaspora policy? Its diaspora policy will likely focus on remittances, business investments, and perhaps capital markets. Now, if its goal is to improve country's competitiveness in economic terms, its diaspora policy is more likely to emphasize the knowledge and skill that the members of diaspora can channel to their countries of origin, right? So the country of origin may, for example, facilitate diaspora members' personal effort to transfer skills to the homeland or work to connect home country institutions of learning and enterprise to advance institutions in countries of destination in which diaspora members have ties. Now, a good example to explain this could be the government of Philippines, which pursues a large-scale contract labor development to reduce unemployment and maintain a stream of remittances income. Now, India, by contrast, has in recent years given priority to encouraging diaspora entrepreneurs and high-skilled professionals to develop activities in their countries of origin. Now, beyond these domestic policy consideration, goals may also be identified as a result of dialogue between governments of countries of origin and destination. Now, for a country of origin, partnership with the country of destination could facilitate the involvement of diaspora and spreading information in diaspora communities about the opportunities and programs that enable greater mobility for diaspora members or provide financial support for joint projects involving the diaspora. For a country of destination that has decided to work with specific diaspora, it is important to ascertain that corresponding country of origin first is willing to involve its diaspora and development activities, and second, that the goal defined by the destination country are consistent with the development priorities of the country of origin. See, the goals of diaspora engagement cannot be set in the vacuum. They should be seen as integral part of development planning and not as a sideline or add-on. Diaspora can bring important financial, intellectual, and social capital to the development process, but they cannot substitute for the cultivation of domestic resources, although they can contribute to this cultivation. Similarly, diaspora efforts cannot succeed when the basic elements of good governance are not integrated into development planning. The past successes of governments such as Republic of Korea, Taiwan in bringing diaspora talent and treasure to the table were in large part possible because both governments have sound development strategies in place to invest in education, promote science and technology, build infrastructure, and foster entrepreneurships. Now, governments are more likely to succeed in setting realistic but ambitious goals for diaspora engagement if they consult with diaspora members when setting these goals. Mexico, for example, has established a consultative council for consultative council of the Institute for Mexicans Abroad, which is composed mostly of leaders of leaders elected by diaspora communities, and this council makes recommendation to government about its diaspora policies. Similarly, government of Switzerland has supported a structured dialogue between Kosovo's residents in Switzerland and their municipalities in origin or municipalities of origin in Kosovo, which has yielded ideas about topics of greatest interest to the diaspora that are also relevant for the development. Now, the next crucial step for a government is to know the diaspora that it hopes to engage. Now, this involves comprehensive data collection, mapping the location of diaspora, compiling inventories of diaspora skills and experience, and engaging a wide range of diaspora members in listening exercises to understand what diaspora has to offer and what it expects from the government in return. It is crucial to acknowledge the diversity of diaspora agendas, interests, and strategies. Through the establishment of continuous dialogue with diaspora, government policy should try to reconcile or at least understand differing and often diverging views. See, we need to understand that the successful government interventions are the result of years of continuous and open engagement. The Indian government, for example, tasked a high-level committee on Indian diaspora to analyze location, situation, and potential development role of NRIs and PIOs. And the information resulting from this two-year exercise in the year 2000 led to a new direction in diaspora policy, including creation of a Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs in 2004. Now it is under the Ministry of External Affairs. Now, for countries of destination, a Know Your Diaspora exercise will involve collection of data in national census and surveys to reveal the birthplace and ancestry of residents in the aggregate. With this information, countries of destination can judge where best to invest their efforts to create partnership with the countries of origin. And the government of Ghana, for example, is among those directing resources to the management of migration data and to creating profiles of diaspora members in particular. Lack of reliable data on diaspora is frequently identified by governments as an obstacle to developing effective diaspora policies and programs. The numbers, distribution, skills, prosperity, and the level of integration of diaspora groups, along with their history, will define the universe of possibilities for diaspora partnership. The next important step will be to build trust. Now, as I said earlier, that diaspora engagement is a continuous process, and this process is much more likely to succeed if it has a strong foundation of good communication and mutual trust. Now, partnership is a two-way street, and too often diasporas have felt that the countries of origin governments see them simply as cash cows, while some countries of destination governments see diaspora groups demanding support on the basis of weak capabilities to deliver on mutual objectives. All parties must feel that they are deriving value from relationship. Building trust is therefore a necessary third element of the diaspora engagement strategy. And the first step in this direction will be to improve the domestic business climate. Countries of destination, collectively or individually, can support such efforts. The European Commission, for example, has funded projects in a number of migrant origin countries to help their governments develop sound legal, regulatory, or institutional framework that promises to encourage increased diaspora investment. In this case, I want to give example of Mexico, as very few governments have taken the task of gaining trust of diaspora as seriously as the government of Mexico has done. From the late 1990s, the government has invested in communication with and service to its diaspora, and a key trust building element of Mexico diaspora engagement strategy is the consultative council that I mentioned earlier. The council freely criticizes and disagrees with government positions. Now, this allows for the voice and influence of both diaspora and government representatives in key efforts such as identifying needs, setting priorities, allocating resources. Now, partnership of trust with diaspora can be built on many different kind of programs, such as access to healthcare and education, duty-free imports of goods, tax-free repatriation of foreign currency income, and ability to buy assets or hold jobs normally reserved for resident citizens. Political rights are often a high priority for diaspora, and governments can both demonstrate and earn trust by facilitating, if it is possible, overseas voting and other forms of political participation for expatriates. Ghana, for example, passed a law permitting dual citizenship in 2001, giving voting rights to Ghanaian abroad in 2006. Such actions are designed to instill a sense of belonging to and engagement with the country of origin. On the other hand, for the government of destination countries, building trust with engaged diaspora population involves acknowledging that their dual sense of belongingness and their commitment to their homeland is compatible with thorough integration in the adopted country. Dual citizenship is one signal that government can send its that it trusts people who have multiple commitments to meet all the obligation of full citizenship. Destination country can take message of trust to a deeper level and one more specific to development by accepting that diasporas have expertise that may be an important input for development policies of their countries of origin. Now, the next step is to mobilize the diaspora for development. Now, with trust established between the government and diaspora, the characteristics of diaspora well understood, and the objective of diaspora engagement clearly articulated, the partnership for development involving diaspora can be successfully mobilized. What does this require? Now, this may require creation of new government institutions or revitalization of existing one. Now, Senegal was one of the first countries to pioneer this kind of arrangement in 1993 with a landmark initiative that overhauled the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and to include oversight for Senegalese abroad. A number of migrant origin countries are creating ministries dedicated to diaspora institute. India also created one. Now it is merged with the Ministry of External Affairs, but it has a highly functional diaspora service department. Then there is Mali's Ministry of Malians Abroad, etc. Thus, countries of origin need an institutional framework at national level to communicate with their diasporas, coordinate policies, provide support for, and follow up and engagement. Now, some scholars believe that even if it succeeds in building trust, a government institution is not necessarily the most suitable channel for the mobilization of financial resources from the diaspora. For example, in Israel, there is an American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, which is solely governed by diaspora members. And diaspora Jews and overseas Israel raise well over $1 billion in philanthropic contribution every year, and which is distributed by this committee. This experience has demonstrated the advantages of an independent and accountable mechanism for the transfer of philanthropic funds from the diaspora to the homeland. It is also worth noting that in a framework of origin destination country cooperation, a non-governmental mechanism for the transfer of funds might enjoy tax benefits or incentives in some host countries. Now, other strategies for diaspora mobilization may include high-profile events such as India's annual Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, where we recognize diaspora members who have made special contribution to their countries of origin. In addition to this, government of origin countries may also appoint well-known members of the diaspora as spokesperson on diaspora issues, so sponsor travel to the country of origin, or for opinion leaders, youth, or establish diaspora volunteer program. Now, country of destination government may partner with the country of origin government in development initiatives, particularly those that would benefit from technical assistance or financial support. In 2003-2005, European Commission supported the return of qualified Afghans program for Afghan nationals living in EU member states. In cooperation with the government of Afghanistan and employing the International Organization for Migration as implementing partner, the program identified Afghans with relevant qualification and experience and assisted their return to Afghanistan for an assignment of 6 to 12 months in both private and public sectors. The Netherlands is similarly implementing a similar program, temporary return of qualified nationals, TRQN, in Afghanistan, Georgia, Ethiopia, Bosnia Herzegovina, Sudan, Sierra Leone. Similarly, the Canadian International Development Agency uses a number of techniques to mobilize diaspora groups for development in their country of origin. It directly funds development projects executed by the diaspora groups. Now, the next important question in this discussion is capacity building for effective implementation. Now, translating promise into reality is more easily said than done. While many governments acknowledge the importance of diaspora engagement in development, many still lack capacity to design effective policies and implement them on meaningful scale. Now, this explains the gap between schemes that look good on paper and truly effective policies and programs that actually make a difference. Now, what are these challenges to building capacity? So the first challenge is amassing adequate funding. Most diaspora institutions are underfunded. Developing countries with very limited and sometimes dwindling financial resources face real spending and allocation constraints. The second challenge is acquiring technical know-how. For many countries, technical know-how, the operational knowledge and skills needed to pursue goals effectively presents a larger hurdle than money. Then there is also a private and public distinction in diaspora development debate. Most of the remittances that are sent by the members of diaspora on individual basis to family members, which is mostly spent on private members. Now, for development policy makers, such flows have a series of benefits both for recipients such as poverty reduction, sustained livelihood, social protection, investment in productivity or future generation, and also for national economies, generating tax revenue, increasing foreign currency receipts. However, this is a private matter and does not necessarily mean investment in public goods and services such as infrastructure development, power supply, water supply, education, and health. Now, this problem is addressed by researchers and development economists in two ways. First, through a conscious development work undertaken by diaspora associations, and second, through the emerging possibilities of government to finance development by leveraging diaspora wealth. So, what are these diaspora associations? A universal feature of diaspora is that they form associations for socialization and to support each others. These associations can be based on profession, religion, ideological, or alumni affiliation, but the most common are hometown associations. Coming from a specific hometown or country, they act like a club for them and they become tool for looking after one's peer in new environment away from home. Now, these associations sometimes pool resources for development projects back home, and this quite early. And this started quite early. For example, Burial Society in Sub-Saharan Africa was established in the earlier 20th century, and these burial societies helped repatriating bodies in order to ensure social welfare of members in the diaspora. More recently, they have raised money in diaspora for development projects at home. And these projects include various income generating schemes such as construction of public services, such as schools, health facilities, provision of cultural and leisure facilities for traditional ceremonies and sports. Now, international development agencies have not been able to engage diaspora association to their full potential. And this could be a result of two reasons, partly from practical reasons, partly from the fear that support for diaspora association might be divisive. There are many practical difficulties in engaging them for development, which result from a mature character, lack of transparency, limited capacity, sometimes due to small size and fractious nature. Also, members are sometimes ethnically homogeneous, which might result in fueling sectarian or identity politics in the home country. So, there is a fear of them being agents of divisiveness. This may sometimes be the case. However, there was a research on African Diaspora Association in particular, which showed that membership is not always ethnically homogeneous, and also there is no automatic relationship between shared identity that they capitalize on and a divisive territorial politics at home. Notwithstanding the above mentioned practical problems in engaging diaspora association, there have been many successful projects where homeland government have been able to engage these associations in the development projects. For example, And I will give the example of Mexican government once again. They initiated a program called 3 into 1 program for migrants. It is called 3 into 1 program because for every dollar donated by diaspora, another three are donated, one by municipal government, one by state government, one by federal government in Mexico. And the program has supported over 6,000 projects proposed by 1,000 Diaspora Association, 27 different states in Mexico. And the provision of public good has dominated this project, such as potable water, sewage system, electrification, road, community centers, improvement to health and education, scholarships have been supported. Recently, tapping diaspora wealth rather than just concentrated on diaspora remittances has caught the eyes of policymakers, and they have realized that it has far greater potential. In addition to continuous interest in philanthropy, voluntary, and advocacy, the policymakers are now interested in diaspora activities and entrepreneurship, capital markets, the business of nostalgia, trade, and heritage tourism. The focus is on development possibilities that could be yielded from those high skilled diasporas whose business activities transfer knowledge, skills, technology, business acumen, and investment back to their home place. For example, the Indian, Ghanaian, Chinese, and Malaysian governments have developed policies to incentivize their high skilled workers overseas, not only to share their skills, but to invest in business at home. Economists are now showing interest in using diaspora wealth, such as savings, real estate, bonds, retirement funds, etc., for development. Foreign or domestic currency saving accounts in back at home, the securitization of remittances, diaspora bonds, and diaspora mutual funds can raise financing either directly for infrastructure spending or indirectly by facilitating government's access to more favorable lending terms on global financial markets. Of these new instruments, diaspora bonds, long-dated sovereign debt agreements that provide issuer with access to fixed-term funding at a lower interest rates, have proved very popular with countries like Rwanda, Kenya, Nigeria. They have issued diaspora bonds following Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Ghana, India, and Sri Lanka. So evidently, there is scope to experiment with the ways to link diasporas to the provision of public goods and services, either by engaging diaspora associations or by accessing diaspora wealth using new financial instruments. But I'll say one thing, both of these strategies are more talked about than acted on, and the specific examples of success are much cited because they are few in number and much of this field remains speculative. Now, dozens of countries have set up high level government bodies or even full ministries to interact with their diaspora population abroad. And both donor governments and international organizations have established programs to implement diaspora engagement strategies. Diasporas have also been both subjects and participants in international discussion. Now, what do states expect from greater diaspora engagement? Policymakers look to members of the diaspora to help overcome some constraints that inhibit economic development: lack of investment, international business acumen, lack of professional and technical skill, isolation from global networks of knowledge, exclusion from global supply chain, among others. And one important expectation is that by offering a channel of access to such networks and resources, an engaged diaspora will act as a counterweight to the immigration of skilled, talented, or simply energetic people from developing countries. Currently, immigration of migrants with tertiary education is very high. But if the people who leave retain a connection with their country of origin and nurture this connection with their children and subsequent generation, the global connection may prove to be a valuable asset. Now, let us discuss the problems. What are the problems with this current enthusiasm for diaspora led developments? The great divide in the diaspora policy is between those policymakers who think diaspora as assets or partners and those who regard them as losses or even threats. Now, some governments or departments within the government, such as in South Africa, and even some development agency, continue to regard diaspora as population that is a loss to the country of origin, and focus policy on enticing members to return or persuading people not to leave. Others, such as Senegal and Philippines, they pursue bilateral agreements with receiving countries to allow their citizens to migrate legally for work and focus on protecting the rights of the migrants. But relatively, very few governments invest in really understanding their diaspora, maintain meaningful connection with them, and find areas of mutual interest for practical collaboration. Now, some countries especially simply look to their diaspora to provide funds or donate their expertise and contacts without giving much thought to creating incentives for them to do so. Some diaspora members will give back to their homelands out of sentiment or without asking much in return. But diaspora policies work best when engagement is a two-way street in which all parties see clear rewards, whether it is psychic or material, from working together. A second misunderstanding is that too often policymakers assume that diaspora engagement is not susceptible to policy intervention. Now, it is true that overwhelming majority of cases, the dense web of ties between diaspora and countries of origin is the creation of individuals and groups acting on their own initiative, rather than a product of government intervention. Policy interventions that, for example, direct diaspora resource to more productive users than supporting their relatives have largely failed. But these experiences should not lead to the conclusion that governments can do little or nothing to promote diaspora involvement in development. They can do much more than most do now if they focus on removing obstacles and creating opportunities rather than trying to manage diaspora resources directly, making it easier for members of diaspora to engage in economically productive activities. Most government financial incentives to attract diaspora investments are relatively small and have had uncertain results that are difficult to access. Would the investment have been made anyway? Are the incentives distorting the market? Are non-diaspora members sending money abroad and enlisting a diaspora member to act as a front in order to benefit from diaspora incentives? This is a practice which is known as round tripping and believed to be quite significant in China. Governments are largely unable to measure diaspora direct investment in a way that it can distinguish it from FDI, foreign direct investment, and some of the other benefits that are inherently hard to measure, and many are long term and complex. For example, what is the reputational enhancement worth to a country? In general, it is difficult to quantify the impact of skills and knowledge transfer, especially in the short term. Another potential obstacle to successful diaspora engagement is that most diasporas are heterogeneous. Governments intending to engage them can only succeed by recognizing this fact and designing policies that address the interests and needs of the individuals and groups within the diaspora, while still serving the interest of the country of origin as a whole. Now, other concern is the political impact of diaspora in home country. Sometimes it may be because of the direct or indirect participation in local conflicts. Scholars and development economists have discussed about many such problems, and few of them are: A, diaspora development activities might perpetuate existing, spatially uneven patterns of development at different scales. B, assumption of policymakers that diaspora will engage in the development of their home place in particular ways, but not all diasporas are willing to go along with policymakers' enthusiasm. See, the engagement of diaspora as agents of development raises important question about responsibility. Why diaspora, the majority of whom are sometimes not highly paid, should be expected to contribute to the development of the village, town, or country? The increasing important role played by diaspora can further undermine the social compact in which the national governments are expected to provide goods and services in exchange for taxes from residents. In this way, it continues a broader process in which development projects are financed and delivered from external sources and generate dependency on exogenous institutions. The work done to publicize the benefits of diaspora led development provides an ideological sheen behind which the exploitative practice of brain drain can be hidden. And if the whole edifice rests on the assumption that remittances from diaspora will continue to flow. Now, to conclude this discussion, I'll say that a diaspora of especially developing countries can be a potent force for development for their countries of origin through remittances, but also importantly through promotion of trade, investment, research, innovation, knowledge, and technology transfer. A sizable amount of research has been conducted on the topic of migration over last several years. And early studies on immigration policy assume that migrants leave there, settle in a new society, abandon their ties with their country of origin. Today, however, it is possible for immigrants to remain connected with and give back to their native countries while residing abroad. Thus, um, and there has been a shift in the shift in the discussion from immigration of skilled people as a loss to seeing skilled migration as an opportunity to get remittances, trade, investment projects, and new knowledge. India, Japan, Israel, Republic of Korea are examples of economies that have tapped into their diaspora as a source of knowledge. In addition, there has been new emphasis on including both skilled and unskilled migrants as contributors to home and host country development. The impact of diaspora engagement is difficult to assess, and it is inherently difficult to disentangle causation from correlation and to quantify the impact of elusive goods like skills and knowledge transfers. Nevertheless, governments can do more to remove obstacles and create opportunities for diaspora to engage in development by taking specific actions to understand where and who the diaspora populations are, and then build solid relationship with diaspora partners, facilitate their involvement in the country of origin, consolidate their sense of belongings, and build institutions to implement coherent diaspora engagement policy. We also know that diaspora policies work best when diasporas are engaged as full partners. In other words, when diaspora engagement is a two-way street. Thank you so much.